It was supposed to be a calm, uneventful Sunday morning, the kind of quiet that made you appreciate moving into a gated community in the first place. The sun had just risen high enough to cast golden shadows across the sidewalk. Birds chirped. Lazily lawns were freshly watered. My wife Evelyn and I decided to take our usual stroll around the neighborhood with our German Shepherd, Max. Just the three of us, enjoying the peace. We'd barely made it to the first bend when we saw her. Not a nickname, unfortunately. That was her actual name. She stood like a sentinel on the edge of the cul-de-sac in a pastel tracksuit that matched her oversized sunglasses, clutching a clipboard like it was a sacred relic. She'd been HOA president for 6 months, and in that time she had turned our quiet little neighborhood into a personal fiefdom. You couldn't plant a flower, sneeze too loud, or leave your garbage can out 2 minutes past pickup without Karen filing a complaint or snapping a picture. Most of the neighbors tried to avoid her. Some complied out of fear. I personally just thought she was harmless, overbearing, and annoying, but harmless until today. As soon as Karen spotted us walking down the sidewalk, her entire demeanor shifted. Her jaw tensed, and she marched straight toward us like a TSA agent in a bad mood. She stopped right in front of Evelyn, blocking the path completely. "Excuse me," she said sharply, her tone accusatory. "I don't recognize you. Are you a guest of someone here?" My wife looked at her with the same calm expression she used when dealing with telemarketers. "We live here. Been here for over a year." Karen narrowed her eyes. "Which house?" 472. My wife answered without hesitation. "Second house from the corner. Beige shutters." Karen clicked her tongue like she didn't believe a word. "Well, I've never seen you before, and for the safety of our community, I'm asking you to show me some identification." I blinked. "You're asking my wife for ID while we're walking our dog. It's protocol," Karen insisted, holding her clipboard higher. "I'm the HOA president. If I don't recognize someone, I have the right to verify they belong here. It's for everyone's safety." My wife didn't even flinch. "You don't have that right, and I'm not showing you anything. You're not law enforcement. You're a woman with a clipboard." Karen's mouth dropped open like Evelyn had just slapped her. "Are you refusing to comply?" she snapped. "This is highly suspicious behavior. People who act like this usually have something to hide." I tried to defuse it. "Karen, we walk here every Sunday. Maybe you've just never paid attention. We're not guests. We're not trespassing, and we're certainly not a threat." But she was already pulling out her phone. "I'm calling the police. I'm not taking any chances. You're refusing to identify, loitering, possibly casing houses. I don't feel safe." "You've got to be kidding," I muttered. She turned her back to us and spoke dramatically into the phone. "Yes, I'm at Ridgeview Estates. Suspicious individuals refusing to show identification. One of them is very confrontational. I feel threatened. They're walking aggressively and may be armed. Please send someone quickly." Walking aggressively. My wife gave me a look that said, "Just let it happen." She didn't argue. She didn't even look annoyed. Just calmly stood there, arms folded, like she'd seen this kind of theater before. Karen kept glancing back at us like we might pull out ninja stars at any moment. 10 minutes passed. Sirens pierced the air. Then came the unmissable low growl of something heavier. Around the corner screeched a matte black SUV, followed by 2 police cruisers. Doors swung open, and SWAT officers in full tactical gear poured out helmets, rifles, vests. They moved quickly, forming a perimeter. "Hands where we can see them," one shouted. I froze. Max started barking, but Evelyn held his leash firmly. I raised my hands. Whoa, we're just walking our dog." Karen was on the sidewalk, pointing like she'd just discovered a fugitive. "That's her. She refused ID and threatened me." My wife didn't move. She raised one hand slowly. "I am unarmed. I am not a threat," she said, loud and clear. "Please verify my identity before you escalate this." The SWAT leader, a tall man with sharp eyes behind tinted goggles, stepped forward cautiously. "Ma'am, what's your name?" "Evelyn Hartley," she replied. Just 2 words, calm and clear. He stared at her for a moment. Then something changed. His posture relaxed slightly. He spoke into his radio, confirming ID Evelyn Hartley. There was a long silence on the other end, then a faint reply. The leader's face changed. He walked up to her, no longer aggressive, just focused. "Ma'am," he said, voice low and respectful. "Are you Colonel Hartley, US Marine Corps?" "Yes," she replied. He turned around and gave a hand signal. "Stand down." Weapons were lowered. Officers immediately began backing off, looking unsure and surprised. The younger ones were practically frozen in place. Karen looked confused, then outraged. Why are you lowering your weapons? She's not a threat. The leader cut in. She's a war hero. Karen's mouth moved, but no sound came out. She looked like she was trying to calculate what had just happened, but the math wasn't adding up. Then the most surreal thing happened. One by one, the officers who had just stormed onto the street in full tactical gear stood tall, looked my wife in the eye, and saluted. It was dead silent, except for Max's tail wagging against my leg. Karen's mouth was hanging open like a broken garage door. I could almost hear the gears grinding in her head. I stood there stunned, watching. My wife returned the salute with a simple nod. The SWAT leader turned to me next. Sir, I apologize for the escalation. We were responding to a false report. I just nodded, still too stunned to say anything. Karen finally found her voice again. Wait, what is going on? What do you mean war hero? The officer looked at her like she'd just fallen out of the sky. Ma'am, Colonel Hartley is the Deputy Director of Homeland Security. She's received 2 Bronze Stars and has led counter-terrorism operations in 3 countries. He just called 911 on a decorated combat officer for walking her dog. Karen's face went from pale to beet red. Her lips twitched. I didn't know. Exactly, the officer said. You didn't ask. You assumed. Evelyn didn't gloat. She just turned her back on Karen and continued walking. Me and Max followed like it was just another Sunday walk. Karen stood frozen on the sidewalk, her face a mix of shock, embarrassment, and disbelief. Her perfectly blow-dried hair didn't move, but her eyes darted wildly, searching for anything to say that could undo the moment that had just unfolded. Sight of an entire SWAT team saluting my wife, a woman she had just accused of being a dangerous intruder, had clearly short-circuited her sense of control. I didn't know, she finally stammered. No one told me who she was. I was just doing my duty as HOA president. The SWAT leader turned slowly to face her. His arms were relaxed now, but his posture remained firm. Ma'am, what you did wasn't your duty. It was harassment. You profiled your neighbor, made assumptions based on nothing, and you put innocent people in danger by calling in a false report. That's not community safety. That's paranoia. Karen's voice cracked, but she refused to show ID. Had every right to. You're not law enforcement. You're not even community security. You're a volunteer on a neighborhood committee, not a federal agent. Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Her grip tightened on her clipboard, knuckles turning white, as if that little rectangle of laminated power might protect her from consequences. I watched, arms folded, staying quiet. Evelyn stood beside me, not saying a word. Her silence was louder than anything Karen could scream. A few of the neighbors had begun to trickle out of their houses during the commotion, watching from porches and driveways. People who had once whispered complaints about Karen's constant policing were now openly staring. One neighbor, a guy named Brian who lived 3 doors down, took out his phone and started recording. That was going to make its way onto Nextdoor and Facebook by sunset. No doubt. Karen saw the cameras, and something in her shifted. She changed tone immediately, softer, more theatrical. Colonel Hartley, Evelyn, I truly didn't mean any harm. If I had known who you were, I never would have. Evelyn finally spoke, her voice measured. That's exactly the problem. Karen, you only would have treated me with respect if you had known my background. You demand ID from anyone who doesn't fit your idea of who belongs here. That's not keeping the neighborhood safe. That's bullying under the cover of authority. Karen blinked, mouth trembling. I swear, I just wanted to make sure everyone was safe. That's all. Then maybe start by getting to know your neighbors instead of treating them like criminals. Evelyn replied. Karen looked as if she might cry. Her carefully constructed identities, the one built on rules, reports, and righteousness, was crumbling in front of a growing audience. I almost felt bad for her, almost. The SWAT leader stepped closer to Evelyn, his voice softer now. Ma'am, per protocol, we'll file a report of the false call. You'll have the option to press charges if you choose. It could be considered misuse of emergency services. Karen panicked. Wait, just, please don't. I didn't mean to waste anyone's time. I thought I was helping. You called in a heavily armed unit for a dog walk, the officer said dryly. You're lucky no one got hurt. Karen turned her eyes to Evelyn again, desperate now. Please, I didn't know. Don't ruin my life over this. Evelyn took a long breath, then looked her dead in the eyes. I'm not pressing charges, but I am filing a formal complaint with the HOA board, and if you approach me or my husband again like this, I will escalate it through the proper legal channels. Karen sagged with relief, though her face still carried the look of someone who'd just been caught cheating on a final exam in front of the entire class. The clipboard at her side hung like a badge of shame now. Before the officers left, one of the younger SWAT members hesitated, then approached my wife with cautious respect. "Ma'am, my brother served under you in Kandahar, Sergeant Malcolm Reyes. He used to talk about you like you were a legend." Evelyn's expression softened. "Malcolm, he was a sharpshooter, took a bullet for one of our squad leaders. I remember him." The officer looked down for a second, visibly moved. "He said you pulled him out under fire, said you saved his life." "I did what anyone would have done for their own," Evelyn said. "Tell him I said Semper Fi." "Yes, ma'am." With that, the team loaded back into their vehicles. The SUVs and cruisers pulled away, tires crunching on the gravel. The silence that followed was thick with everything left unsaid. Karen didn't look at us as she shuffled away. Defeated and exposed, her steps slower than usual. Her power had been public opinion, and in a single morning, she'd lost all of it. We turned and continued walking. Max, he didn't seem to care that a neighborhood crisis had just unfolded. He was just happy to sniff another tree. That's the thing about dogs, they don't care about titles or power or HOA politics. They just know who loves them and who doesn't. Single quotes. As we walked through the neighborhood, people began waving. Some gave nods of acknowledgement, others quietly mouthed thank you to Evelyn. One woman on a porch even clapped as we passed by, which made Evelyn chuckle under her breath. The mood had changed. There was a shift, subtle but real. A kind of respect that hadn't been there before. Not because Evelyn held a high position in government or had medals stashed away in a box somewhere, but because people had seen something. Her grace, her calm, her refusal to escalate, even when wrongly accused. That's what stayed with them. Back home, we put Max's leash on the hook, kicked off our shoes, and sank into the couch. The house was quiet, sunlight pouring in through the windows, peaceful again. I turned to Evelyn. "You handled that like a Jedi Master." She smiled faintly. "Karen wasn't the first person to point a finger at me, won't be the last. But SWAT showing up on a dog walk, that was new. You think she learned something from this?" "Doubt it," she said. "But the neighborhood did. That's enough." I leaned in and kissed her on the cheek. "Still think you're the coolest person I know," she smirked. "Took SWAT showing up to prove that." "No," I said. "That was just a bonus." From that day forward, Karen kept a low profile. She still went to HOA meetings, but now she sat in the back. She stopped patrolling with her clipboard. People stopped whispering about her and started ignoring her altogether. The power she once wielded with petty pride had been taken from her, by force, but by truth. And as for Evelyn, no one in the neighborhood ever asked her for ID again.